In this video I'm going to show you what to do if your Karcher window vac is starting to sound a little bit horrible, a bit squealy, a bit rough, a bit noisy. This one's a Karcher WV, I guess that's window vac 50. Other models might be similar, but to replace the motor in these usually outweighs the cost of replacing the whole thing. So I'm going to show you a nice, cheap, simple fix to the motor. You've got a screw, or 4 screws that hold this black cowling on, which need to be removed first before undoing any of the rest of the casing, because they actually hide more screws underneath. Now here's the motor removed from the window vac, and you can see the reason the motor sounds quite so bad is because the little axle there is so loose within the motor body. So what we're going to do is address the play in the motor. Now we can see what's happened here is that the motor itself has suffered from some water ingress around the chassis there, the enclosure, and the axle is therefore wobbling within the bearing there. That's just a kind of a mild steel bearing, not a ball race, just a mild steel graphite type bearing. So that is completely and utterly shot. Now the point of most of my repairs is that everyday household things, or things that might be deemed unrepairable, can be saved with some TLC or minimum spend. Now this motor is actually quite specific to the Karcher window vac. It's got a particularly long axle or shank on the axle there, and is actually produced by Mabuchi, a very famous small motor manufacturer. Unfortunately this motor is out of production at Mabuchi. I emailed them and they want a minimum order of 10,000 to get the production line started, so unfortunately my pockets aren't quite deep enough for that. But the actual chassis itself is very common, so I'm going to attempt a transplant of that chassis onto that back plane. So what we've done there is just bent back the little tangs on the end there from the main casing. The brushes in our motor are actually okay, but you can see there's evidence of water ingress all round. Now the reason I'm doing this is because the windings on that spindle are specific to this device. So that length there and the windings on that coil there are specific to this Karcher product. So what I've done here is take the casing, and more importantly the bearing, from a good motor that's the same size as the Mabuchi motor that's specific to this device, and transfer the casing with the winding that isn't suitable for this device over. So it's the old backplate, old winding in a new motor casing with new bearing. And just to prove the difference, this one sounds lovely and sweet. Here's the motor back in position with the rubber shrouding back on either side that locates into the plastic casing. And here's the fan or impeller back in position there, just pushed onto the spindle. And here's the back plate of the impeller, or rather the part of the turbine there, reassembled, just pushes into place into the housing alongside the exhaust there, which runs all the way along the back of the handle, just holding the switch in position. Note the cable doesn't get trapped when you're putting the two halves of the casing back together again.